Welcome to the Root of Power podcast, where I teach you how to step into your power, find alignment, and create a life that you love using holistic methods, interviews with industry leaders, and inspiring stories from people who know that true freedom is found within. I'm your host and health and wellness bestie, Amanda Chills, and I'm so proud of you for choosing to step into the root of your power. Hello, podcast fam. So I am here with Elise, and you guys have no idea what you are in for. So Elise and I have been best friends. If you say we're just normal friends, I will come through the computer and murder you myself. Have been best friends since we were 14. So imagine, if you know me personally now, imagine how fucking weird I was at 14. And it's just super, super weird. It's fine. I haven't really matured at all. And so I've known her for 15 years now. We're both 30. Living in the time of Rona. So if you're listening to this in 2030, like, it's a really weird time. Back to Elise. So Elise has always been a force, like totally badass, like does whatever she wants to do, takes life by its horns. Like, she happens to life instead of life happening to her. And it is super inspiring. And so I wanted her, obviously I'm talking to you, Elise, as well, but like her for people listening, to come on and talk about the journey from like moving states away when you were a little baby, 18 years old, figuring out life, really finding your roots, and just being a total fucking badass all along the way. Like, I knew when you were 14 the kind of woman that you would be, and I'm so excited that you're like stepping into it. So like, you are the real definition, y'all. She is the definition of like stepping into your power and being rooted. And Elise did all the graphics for the podcast. So, because she's amazing, basically. So I always describe you, and I tell you this all the time, and I don't know if you believe me, but this is what I do. I'm always like, Elise is the most badass person I know. Like, everyone I know, when I talk about you, I'm like, she's such a fucking badass. Like, she's so cool. She's so much cooler than me, which is hard to do because
that's debatable, though.
It's pretty cool. So with that intro, y'all, like, get ready. Elise is dope. Hello.
Hi, that was such an intro. Thank you. Yeah, I know. I feel like I have to like really step it up a notch to
step into your power.
I have to step into my power. Yeah, so I'm Elise, and just to kind of give you the whole rigmarole of what Mandy was talking about. I call her Mandy. Sorry, y'all.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
My adult life know me as Amanda, so Elise knows me as Mandy. No one else gets to call me that.
Yeah.
Just people who knew me as a wee baby.
Just a wee baby. Yeah, so I moved out to Colorado when I was 18, right after high school. I loaded up literally everything that would fit in the back of my Jeep Grand Cherokee, and Mandy was actually my co-pilot the entire way. That was such a trip. And we I moved from Florida to Colorado, to Denver, where my dad lives.
Who let us do that?
My mom was just like, see you later, have fun storming the castle.
God bless your mother. I would also love to talk about your mom, because Elise's mom is so dope. But so Elise and I, imagine little 18-year-old baby dum-dum.
Do you remember my beta fish was like in the middle? In like a water jug, because that's the only place I could fit him without spilling anything. My mom took that water jug, by the way.
Oh, Jesus. Okay. He also almost got killed in Oklahoma. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I like blacked that out, man.
Yeah, it was crazy. Okay, side note, you guys, we stayed at a motel in Oklahoma with these like super creepy dudes who were staying there. Oh my God, I can't believe it was
staying with them. They just were staying in the same hotel.
Oh, right. Yeah, we weren't like traveling with them. And I was like, I'm gonna lock the door and get their ass if they come through. Like, what am I gonna do? Run and scream.
You're like, I'm sleeping close to the door, Elise. I'm like, okay.
I will protect you. You got a speeding ticket in Louisiana. Oh, that cop was such a dick.
Oh, he was the worst. He bent my ID. And then you almost got one in Texas, but you talked your way out of it. And I was like, low-key pissed at you. I was like, really? You didn't get one, but I did.
What else happened? Oh, anyway, we're nuts. It's fine.
Yeah, good stuff.
Okay, so you moved to Colorado when you were 18 and have been killing it ever since. So what have you been doing?
Okay, so when I first moved here, I was going to school, and that was kind of the deal. I was going to go to school for photography, like, every 18-year-old decides to do, I think, and when they don't know what to do with their lives. And
you're an artiste.
Huh?
I said you're an artiste.
An artiste. Yeah, so I moved out here to go to school and to like be around my dad, and just I was over Florida, as you can imagine. And when I started going to school, I realized I did not love school, so I just kind of stopped going. Ooh, that was an expensive mistake, but yeah, so thank you. So I basically just floated around and I got a job at a restaurant, like many people do, and I have been working on and off in the restaurant industry for about 12 years. I feel like that was a really intense and awesome time in my life, especially in my younger 20s, because it kind of gave me permission to let loose a little bit and like kind of come out of my shell. I really was only ever like out of my shell with you in high school, I think. So when I moved out here, I blossomed in my personality a lot more so, and became a lot more comfortable with who I was. But it was also really hard because I didn't have a really good direction of like knowing where I wanted to go. I felt like I always had this metaphor of like, I feel like I'm a rear-wheel drive vehicle and my back wheels are going a million miles an hour. I just like don't know which direction I want to go in first before I set the wheels down and like take off. And so in and out of going and working at restaurants, I tried school one more time for something completely different than like art, and that didn't work. I got about halfway through the semester and was like, bye, Felicia. And and I worked at varying jobs. I got a job. I just like walked in and got a job at a photography studio, and that was major for my like growth and development in just my artistic style. I worked there for like 7 years and learned a lot about who I was and like what I wanted and what I didn't want professionally. And I worked at a couple other different places outside of restaurants, and it finally came down to it that I was like, you know what? I'm not happy anywhere, and like working in the industry, like restaurant industry was like so easy because it was like I could turn off my brain, but I never felt like I was like, I'm like, I don't want to be like 60 years old and still working at a restaurant, obviously. My back and my neck would not allow it. Starting to hunt back.
I think you've always been someone who like is very intuitive. Like I find that artistic types tend to be that way anyway, but like I've always thought that like you can basically turn shit into gold in like any situation. And that I think speaks so much to like feeling stuck. Like when you mentioned like your back wheels spinning, that feeling sucks. It doesn't feel good. But I think a lot of people stay there because they're too afraid to go in a direction, and then you can always pivot, which some people know intuitively, and some people really have never been taught that, like, you can always change your mind.
I think that it's like the hardest thing too is that you realize, I don't think that a lot of people realize that like the thing that you set out to like go to school for or that you like start your career in is rarely what you actually like end up doing like to the T, right? So like, and this is a really great example too of pivoting and like not being afraid of change and like completely changing course. And it's never been, it never being too late. My mom has a cousin who went to law school, which is like, wow, so much time, right? So many years. Yeah. And she practiced for like a year or two, and she decided she hated it. So she went back to school to get her PhD like in infectious diseases, which is like real handy right now. Um, and so like that's a whole other like decade basically in school. So,
Yeah.
and I think she was in her like 40s when she decided to go back to school. So it's like, yeah, so you can always, it's one of those things you can always pivot, but I think that I also, I think I was more trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to do right away, not realizing that like it is a process and then you have to kind of flow into it. The one thing that I have that I'm like thankful for about myself is that if something's not working for me, especially like professionally speaking, I have no problem with being like just cutting ties and just saying this isn't working. I gotta like change course.
Yeah.
And whether like really good money or a really good schedule or whatever, I've always been like, no, I'm done. And then I just like pick something new. And it's the way that I've been able to find out.
I always had a feeling you'd also start your own business. Like there are some people that are bad employees, not because like I'm one of those people. I'm not the world's best employee. Like I'm just not. I question a lot of systems, and if something doesn't work for me, I'm just like, fuck this. Yeah. I can do it better, and so I'm going to. Yeah. And that's not the best employee. And I feel like you're similar where you're like, why? Why do I put up with this when I can just do it myself?
Yeah, well, and that basically is what happened. So when I met my husband,
who we love. Y'all, we stand her husband so hard.
That's him right there. Not that one. That's him. He's so cute. Anyway, yeah, when I met him initially, he was going to school for graphic design, and when I finally started kind of getting it in my head that I wanted to open up my own business, my brain flocked to photography, obviously, because that was always been my passion. And I was in the industry for 7 years working at a studio, and I got really good at it. And so I was like, well, I can do this on my own. But I'm I'm so meticulous and such a perfectionist about like, I want to just do things myself. Like I can go to like Hobby Lobby and find some like really cool like homemade looking painting on it or something, or I'll go into like Urban Outfitters and like see some like, I don't know, designed thing, and I'm always like, oh, that's really cool, I really like that, I would love that in my house. And then I always sit in there and think I could just make that. and then I never do, but that's always like my train of thought. So when he was going to school and I was kind of having these feelings of I want to open up my own business, I kept thinking like, well, I want to be able to do my own marketing material, I want to be able to make my own website, I want to be able to like do everything myself so that I don't have to pay somebody else to do this. And it's exactly how I want it. So I went back to school for graphic design as well, and so happy that I did. Oh my God, that was like the missing link for motivating me to just like make the jump. And I worked at a corporate office in like a printing shop, like an in-house print shop that was for this big weed corporation out here. And I learned a lot of like hands-on skills with large format printers and stuff like that. So I don't know, like my main goal too is to eventually add that into my stuff because it's easy and it's fun. But it kind of forced me to just make the push, and I just launched my business on my birthday this year at the end of June. So
okay, tell me about your business, because you got like, whoever is listening, first of all, we're gonna link all of your stuff in the show notes so that people can find you, they can hire you. Like if any of you give a damn about what I say, hire Elise. Like, for anything she will do for you. She's amazing.
Your review website like always cracked me up.
Tell us about your business. What do you do? Why did you decide to start it? Did coronavirus like kind of stimulate that starting it?
So I graduated in like May. So the last 4 months ish or something of my college career was like over Zoom and stuff like that. So I didn't really get to graduate, but I just was like at home being able to work on stuff, and it has, it was always on the back of my mind, like, okay, you need to like get your website polished. So as soon as I graduated, I spent 3 months polishing my website, and that was like literally all I did. That was my full-time gig because I got laid off from the restaurant, and I made the best of what I had, and thankfully I'm one of the people that actually like, I didn't lose everything, and I'm very grateful for that. And this was actually one of those moments that was like a catalyst for me to be able to just like really spend the time. And God, I did not realize how much time it was going to take me when I originally was like, I'm going to start a business. That should be easy, right? And it's like, you go through the process of like, I need a logo. That should be fine. You start the website and you're like, this looks like shit because there's just a logo on there. Fantastic. What else do I need? I need branding. Okay. Well, what does that mean? Okay. Well, crap. And then you have to incorporate, and then you have to do your taxes and all that. Oh my God. I'm just like,
it's a lot.
Your setup. It's just so much stuff. I'm like,
yeah.
So
people don't.
They don't. They really don't. And there's so many times that I have people come to me and they're like, I want a logo. And you've done this. You're like, I want a logo. And I'm like, cool. I'm going to give you branding. You don't just want a logo. Anyway.
Podcast.
Yeah. We're working on it. It's fine. So we in the midst of the Corona stuff too, I graduated. I started my business. We bought a house. And yeah, it's been kind of bonkers, but it's been really good. It just feels like I haven't had any sleep, any rest. Like I have had to become a morning person because I'm like, I need those extra 3 or 4 hours in the day just to get stuff done. But it's been really great. Business has been good. And, yeah, I'm just really grateful. I'm just really rolling with it as it comes to me.
Yeah. So I was talking to a friend of mine who lives out in Montana. She just started her own business during Rona, and I'm just like, oh my God, everyone is doing this, don't shine, I love it. And we were talking about how starting your own business is a bullshit filter. Like, yes, you have to, in order to do anything outside of a comfort zone, which, doing anything new or starting, like, birthing a business is not easy. Well, I don't want to say it's not easy. It's a lot of stuff. Side tangent. I say everything is easy just so I trick my brain into thinking it's easy. So I'm just like, oh, it's easy. Like, I'm in the process of building a co-working space right now. So we have to go through like city officials, and I just got the quote for it. And I'm just like, I would rather kill myself than pay this.
You a ghost right now, Mandy?
Yeah. So I'm a ghost now. I actually died when I saw the proposal, and I'm a tactile ghost. So, but then I was like, you know what? Everything is easy. People have money. They're going to give it to me. Everything is easy. Once you take that mindset, just for anyone listening who they complain all the time, that only gets you a negative view, and those things start showing up. Like, if you start thinking about a yellow Jeep, guess what you're going to start seeing? A yellow Jeep. So if you start thinking everything is easy, everything comes to me, it'll be fine, it'll work out, you're going to start seeing that. Mm-hmm. And I feel like starting a business forces you to do that, because nobody would ever start a business if all they thought about was how much it was going to fail. Like, you just won't. Yeah. So what did you go through? Like, what stories does like Elise brain tell you about starting it, and like, what are the filters that you had to work through?
Okay, so the major part of it, I mean, like you said, I mean, I always kind of figured that I was going to be starting my own business at some point in my life. I just honestly didn't know when. Yeah. And so when coronavirus happened and I lost my job and I just graduated, and it was kind of just like this perfect storm of like, it's now or never. And you always bitch about like, I need to get out of the service industry, or every single job in every single setting. I always have something to complain about, and you're always unhappy with something. And it always forces you to just like look for something new. Like, what's better than being your own boss? And like, it forces you to have that accountability of like, I am the person that is going to be making all the decisions for myself, and I'm the only one that I can complain to. So I don't want to hear all the complaining anymore. So it just made me like, I still like bitch about things here and there, obviously, but like it forced me to like really stop complaining a lot too, because like, who am I going to complain to? Myself? Like, I don't. Right. Like, put it in the freaking complaint box, Elise. Like,
I I always say, like, have a meeting with the MEO. Like, if I hate something, me and the MEO just meet, and I'm like, listen, bitch.
MEO.
Hate this shit. Like, because that's what you are. Like, you're the MEO. So it's like, I really hate my schedule. And it's like, okay, well, who the hell set up the schedule that you have? And it's like, I did.
I did. I know. Every time I look at my my calendar, I'm always just like,
yeah. You're like, I'm so overwhelmed. And then it's like, who took on too much work? And it's like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, that's been major, is trying to figure out like the balance of everything. Because it was so, making that transition of my schedule was so flexible, like especially working at a restaurant, like to now suddenly I have these hard deadlines and I have contracts that are holding me accountable to things. And, it's like I couldn't just like screw around anymore and be like, oh, I'm just going to like take off for the weekend. Like
Right.
I have to like plan things out like a month in advance anymore,
Yeah.
which is really, it's also giving me the skills to, just really prioritize, I guess, when before I just was kind of like, oh, this is happening. Oh, this is happening. Or, it's even helped me a ton with like budgeting and everything too, because,
You're much flexible, right? Because you get paid when contracts end, and it's not like you leave at the end of a shift with cash.
Right. And, now I have to give a big chunk of change to good old Uncle Sam too. So that's also made me realize, it's been really great because it's also made me really analyze my worth and what I think my worth is. Obviously monetarily, but like time-wise too. So like right now I'm taking on a really, really huge project. I'm rebranding a restaurant, and it is my first restaurant that I have rebranded. And it has been so much fun, and it has been an incredible learning experience. But it's also like I quoted them next to nothing because it was my first one. And so I'm realizing like, okay, so the next time that I do this, I have to charge way more. I have to like, allow for a lot more time. Because they were also needing things like on the fly. So like something that I would normally feel comfortable doing in 4 to 6 weeks, I did in 3.5 weeks.
Yeah.
And, and then it just is like more and more and more on top of that. And it's always more work than you're anticipating it being too. So it's definitely making me realize, because I'm working from home right now, and thankfully I've had the opportunity where I haven't had to go work at the restaurant for the last month and a half, and I won't until at least October likely, if not longer than that. Sorry, manager, if you're listening to this. So, but it's been sucking up all of my time, and so that's something that I also have to balance. It's my work life relationship balance. Like I went camping this past weekend for 3 days, and I came back and it just was like, oh my God, I shouldn't have done that. But like I had to do that, for my mental health. I had to do that to like break away and not be sitting at my desk, not be sitting in front of a computer.
Right.
Because that's all I've been doing for the last, 5 or 6 weeks. That's all. So I'm really realizing, what my time is worth, and what my, what that time allows for. It allows for, time spent with my husband instead of sitting in front of the computer. It allows for time spent with my friends, enjoying my new house, hanging out with my dog, all that kind of stuff. So it's been really interesting figuring out, feeling comfortable with like asking for what I'm worth too. And that's been major. Yeah.
How did you, so there's two questions. Pick whichever you want first, because this is your adventure. I would love to know how not valuing your worth when you were in your early 20s, like what that led to, and how that's changed now that you started your own business.
Okay.
And then after that, like what self-care looks like for you, because that's something a lot of people struggle with. I find especially like young women, like I have a lot of young female clients who get different messaging. So they're not taught to value boundaries and saying no, and they allow people in their lives who are toxic, or they do toxic things, or they don't take care of themselves because they don't value and were not taught to value themselves. So
Sure.
if you don't think something is valuable, you obviously don't take care of it. So much of my work is teaching people how to value themselves, so they then, like, everything just falls into place once you start doing that. So I would love to know your journey, and I don't know if you've ever reflected on it, like what it was like for you when you were younger to not understand that you are so valuable, you're too valuable to allow shitty people in your life. And I think everybody goes through that. So what did that look like for you? Like, what consequences did it have?
So I mean, this can be like, it's an onion, right? There's so many different layers to not knowing my full value in different ways and different levels, especially when I was younger.
Deep. Huh. I said, I told you we was getting deep, girl.
So, okay, so when I was in my early 20s, I mean, especially in the restaurant industry, it's just like a breeding ground for like the party scene, right? And I always refer to them as my wild child days. And I mean, I was never completely out of control or anything like that. And, you know, I don't have like major problems or anything from it, but like it was definitely a period of like, because I didn't have a direction and because I didn't know where I wanted to go, I took the hard road of figuring things out, you know, rather than like, oh, learn from my mistakes. Okay, yeah, no, I can't do that. And so I didn't value myself I think in a lot of ways, because I was trying to just figure out life, right? And so of course that has consequences down the road, both good and bad, I think. I mean, on the negative side, obviously, there was a lot of time wasted. There was a lot of like damage I did to my liver and mistakes that I wish I hadn't made, but like also at the same time, like you said, learning experiences, right? So like now I'm 30 and, you know, I'm by no means a wild child anymore. I'm like married and settled down, and, you know, like my idea of like a crazy night is like, I don't know, sharing a bottle of wine with my friend or something. Like, it's really not like I used to go to like, I mean, I'm out here with Red Rocks and stuff. Like I used to go to like concerts all the time and, you know, all that stuff. So I definitely simmered down a lot because, you know, I'm busy. I can't do anything else anymore. But on top of that, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about relationships, not just romantic, but, you know, allowing people into my life. And I've always been somebody I'm very empathetic, like to a fault. And I don't mean that in like I can read your thoughts kind of way, but, you know, and feel everything that you're feeling necessarily. But I always try to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I try to like see things from their perspective.
Yeah.
And
have great boundaries.
Right. Right. I was actually talking about this with somebody else not too long ago, and about like how because I am, and because who I was talking to, we are very empathetic people, it's really hard for us to draw those boundaries because we see things from your perspective so much that we're like, I get why you did this. And so we end up just like eating a shit burger over it, right? Like, and then like we don't get taken care of, right? Because we're just busy seeing things from your perspective and trying to like help you go through whatever you're going through, right? And at the end of the day, we end up having to like, we typically have to reset ourselves. Mm-hmm. So I did find that out, you know, fairly young, at least with like the relationship side, and not just, again, romantic, with friends and stuff like that. If people were not treating me well, or if they would like ghost me or like blow me off or not be there for me, I mean, I had no problem with like cutting a lot of like loose acquaintances out of my life because I'm like, I just ain't nobody got time for that. So, you know, now, it's been a lot of personal growth, I think, with that, especially being married. you have to navigate certain waters that you never had to. And even just like people, like friends in my life. I mean, I've always been the person that like will reach out to people and like try to stay connected. And it's like, if you don't want to stay connected, then I can't expend any more emotional energy on it if you're not going to at least meet me halfway.
Yeah.
And in terms of like self-care, I guess it all kind of wraps up into that. When I was younger and I had the time, my version of self-care, I think, was more like, I'm gonna give myself like a facial and go get my nails done, and I'm gonna go shopping, and it was all very external, right? Which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Preach. Keep going. You're doing so good. Keep going.
It's all very external, which is fine. But I think like now, especially when we're in the middle of Corona, we can't, I can't be like tossing money at stuff like that too.
Right.
And the fact that like my time is sucked up with like the three major things in my life, which is my marriage, my house, and my business.
Yeah.
And of course, like there's family aspects and friends and all that stuff too, obviously. But like those are like the things in my face all day, every day. My idea now, I think it's a good point that you bring up self-care, because I don't really do self-care as much as I should. My idea of self-care now, I think, is like shutting everything off and just like spending time with like my husband, or doing things around the house, or doing like planning for my business rather than like actual work on it. It's like, planning things for the future. But like, rarely do I focus specifically on me. Especially working, like being empathetic and working in the service industry for 12 years, I've always been like, how can I serve you? How can I like take care of somebody else first before I take care of myself, and like quickly eat a thing of ramen over the kitchen sink before I have to like go off and do something else, So I think that my version of self-care is slowing down right now. That's it. Because that's all I can do.
Yeah, no, it is so good. So that's actually one of the reasons I asked you that question, is like, I felt like you would land on what can I do for you? What can I do for you? What can I do for you? And I think the turning point, what I see as the turning point for most of my clients and most of my people, is when I give them permission to give themselves the same care they give others. Mm-hmm. What would you do for others? Do it for you now. If you would tell them to rest or take a break or make them a meal that they like, or be like, why don't you go on a hike? Like, hello, do that for you now. Like, that's what you need now. And I think coronavirus has had a lot. I don't want to, and I say this in every episode right now that we're dealing with it, like, I don't want to discount the grief and the loss and the bullshit that like coronavirus has been. But part of how I cope, and part of what I feel personally is more helpful to cope, is to also see the gifts in the shit, right? You can take a pile of poop and you can fertilize a garden and it grows other things. So in coronavirus, like, I think it's been so powerful for so many people to slow the fuck down. Like, it has forced so many people to go internal, to say, oh shit, I've been avoiding my life because I'm a workaholic, or I'm in other people's drama, or I go, and now I don't have that. And they're forced to look at the rot in their own system and to dig it out. And I think that's so powerful.
It's just really interesting, like, when quarantine first happened, I think everybody went through this like withdrawal phase of like, I went through it. I mean, I remember like the first 2 months of it, I just was like, the sky is falling, everything sucks. I would have mental breakdowns on like every other day basis, and just like miss my life, miss the world, all that stuff. And I think by like the third month, especially because I had been like working really heavily like on my business and stuff too, it started, and I think that helped, not necessarily the main reason, but I think it helped me shift like my focus of my priorities, and things that I was really sad about missing, I now was like, well, at least it's an excuse, like at least everybody's going through this. Yeah. And like it's like the first 2 months it just felt like FOMO, right?
Yeah.
Like it felt like FOMO. And then by month 3 I was like,
for anyone who's older. For my mom listening, that's fear of missing out.
Yeah, I'm like, everybody's missing out, and I need to, like you said, I need to like grow something out of like the shit, right? I need to do something with this time. I will never get time like this again where everything stopped.
Please, let's never do this again. But I think like a lot of people would not have slowed down because it's so easy to lose yourself and to really avoid doing your own work because you're lost in other people. Or I meet so many people who I say, what do you do for fun? And they're just like deer in the freaking headlights. And I'm like, what do you do for you? And they're just like, I have never thought about that. And I'm like, maybe that's why you're in therapy.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why you're here.
And that's the thing is I think that everybody could always do better with that.
Yeah, nobody's perfect at it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously everybody can always do better with that, but I think that I think it is really, you get stuck in all the stuff. You get stuck in all of the day-to-day minutia, and it's hard to like take a step back. That's why I'm saying, like, even my self-care right now, I know it doesn't sound like much. My self-care is just slowing down. My self-care is like turning things off and like sitting outside on my patio. Yes. And I mean, like, I definitely will get lost in some Netflix every once in a while because I'm like, I'm allowing my brain to just turn off, where I feel like I'm just on all the time, like allowing myself to just be.
Yes. Oh my God. Okay. Can you repeat that, please? What you just said.
Just like allowing myself to be, allowing myself to turn off, allowing myself to like stop going and stop having to plan, stop having to think, not to think, but stop having to worry, stop having to delegate.
You're just in the moment.
Yeah, it's really interesting. One of my girlfriends I was camping with, she saw something on Facebook somewhere, and it was like this little comic, and it was talking about, and I know that it was kind of a bit more of a feminist post, and I completely understand because I am a woman, obviously, and I feel this, but I can't say because I'm not a dude. But it was basically talking about how women, especially, deal with mental load, which is like, okay, I have to drop the kids off at school, and then right after that, I have to go run to the grocery store, and
go the unpaid labor of the home. Okay.
Of everything, of your whole life, and you end up taking on the role with, typically, especially as like a woman in the household, or whatever, you take on that role for more people than yourself.
Yeah.
And so, when people ask you like, what can I do to help you? It's kind of like, it would take me longer to explain than it would be to just have me do it.
Right.
And I definitely feel like that has been a huge thing for me to, I don't want to say it's an issue, but it's been weird for me to try to explain that, especially for, like my husband and, family that wants to help, or people, friends that want to help, when they, what can I do to help you? It's been hard for me to really get that across, and explain how that feels, and then also being able to let go and like being able to delegate, being able to like count on the people around you to like not fuck it up.
Right. And that's hard. Like you're right. And in general, in heterosexual relationships, women take on more of the emotional labor and the household managing. So like, don't at me, people, if this isn't you. But if it is you, let's talk about it. And so there's a really good article that I post sometimes, and it's about that. So like when people ask how they can help, normally I'm just like, find something to do and do it. Like, you have eyes. You live in this house, especially if it's like your partner, right? Like, you also live in this house. So use your eyeballs and use your brain and do it so that I don't then have to be your manager. Like,
that's like the whole thing. I become a manager.
Pick something up. I don't care. Pick something up and do it. But that can be very hard because they want to help, but they also want to be told what to do. But then they're also putting you as the person in charge of those things rather than saying, I'm your partner and I'll take the load off. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And not that I'm not trying to like say that that's exactly what happens here or anything like that.
It's not specifically about you, Moises, when you.
Yeah, no. My husband does a lot.
He's a gem.
He's a gem. We love
But
him.
I went through that in my marriage. Like one of the reasons I'm no longer married to him. I did everything. I worked 2 jobs. I came home. I did all the cooking, all the cleaning, and I was just like, oh, this is bullshit. Like, no, I'm not your mom. And he did not want to like be a partner.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes friends do that. Like sometimes friends will take, and everybody goes through cycles, right? But sometimes friends will take way more emotional labor than they give you. And all of those things can be navigated with a conversation, but that conversation is scary. And it can be hard to have.
I feel like half the time when I'm talking to like some of my friends, and it's kind of weird because like you were talking about earlier, like building your business, it's like a bullshit filter, right? I feel like I kind of had that bullshit filter starting to get built in even before I started to build my business. Been through enough like crap. That was like a part of me, I guess, learning from all of my real fun mistakes when I was younger. Is like
learning lesson.
It was learning, and I'm like, I'm not putting up with this bullshit anymore. And I am like the friend to go to if you want to get gassed up about making a hard decision, like. Yes. Like leaving your boyfriend who like treats you like shit, or leaving a job that you fucking hate, or you know, like just doing something that's good for you.
Do something.
I will gas you up, and I will give you a like PowerPoint presentation, and I'm gonna.
They say, what should I do
to make sure that it's happening?
Like, you just have a screen that you carry with you, and you're like, tripod, pull the screen. Here's what you should do.
Have it in my iPhone notes. I'm like, look, here you go. I'll send this to you. I'll airdrop you. But like, because I get to a point where I'm like, I don't know why you're dealing with this anymore. And it's always a lot easier, obviously, to like give that kind of advice than to get that kind of advice, especially giving it to myself, to the MEO. It is hard to talk to her about that sometimes, but
yeah, sometimes the MEO is a real fucking bitch to talk to.
She's a real stubborn.
She's I know.
She's like, but I understand how you feel, so whatever.
But that's so true, and that brings us back to knowing your worth.
Yeah, it really does.
If you feel like you are extremely valuable, your no meter gets so much stronger because you're just like, I don't deserve this. Yeah. Not only do I not deserve it, I have the power to change it. And that's where I think so many people get stuck is they know something is off. Like most of what I do is I bring people back into alignment. So often they like deny their intuition. I did it for a long time, right? I knew something was extremely off in a number of things in my life, but we'll specifically talk about my marriage. Like I knew something was off. I knew it was wrong. I knew I deserved better. And it took me a little while to say, oh no, like no. Mm-hmm. And I got to that point where like, if you guys are watching on video, my face is like crumpled and it's like, oh, no. And then I was like, you know what? No, like, I'm so good alone and you detract from my happiness that I literally don't need you here. And so I try and do that in every aspect of my life. Like, did you watch Marie Kondo?
Yeah.
Okay, so she's like,
joy. Bye.
Doesn't bring you joy, throw it off a fucking cliff if it doesn't. And so I bring
it into the trash. I'm just kidding.
Right, yeah, I just like shove figuratively everything in my life that doesn't bring me joy in the trash. Now, listen, I don't love doing billing. I don't love doing my taxes, but like my mom is doing my billing, so thanks, mom. And I don't like going to jail more than I don't like doing taxes, so that brings me joy. But if you don't value yourself, you don't take those steps. And I think like what a lovely way to sum up where we are.
I think that part of it too is, and I'm not trying to like make you sound emotionless. You are an incredibly emotionally deep person. Yeah, you're so welcome. And yeah, I'm an ocean of emotion. There's a song in there somewhere. But you've always been very good about Marie Kondoing your life, honestly. Like from the time that I've known you, honestly, when I going to school or doing, being in relationships or having friends or like even the part of town, like the part of the state that you were living in or the part of the country you were living in, the fact that you like up and moved and you were just like, I'm going to start a farm. Okay, here we go. And like, you just did it. You're just such a doer. And I think for me, I always have had like the ability and the confidence to do that. For me, I always have an emotional block. I always get tied up on like the emotional end of everything, and so it's hard for me to like clear cut see like, okay, I can see that this is the right decision, but I can't make it because it's too hard to emotionally like drag myself through the mud through things.
Yep.
And so that ends up wasting all this time, or it ends up, just being more pain than it's worth. I mean, I was like, I was in a relationship before my husband that was on and off and lasted a really long time. And I mean, we were both at fault. We would like constantly go back and forth to one another. And, when I finally was like, I need to I need to separate this. Like this needs to finally happen. But it took me 4 years to be like, to drag myself emotionally through the mud. And then it was like, as soon as I made that decision, I met my husband.
Yeah. Two points I want to make. Like, when you start knowing your worth and saying no to things that you don't deserve, I think the things that you do deserve show up.
Oh,
like
100%.
The reason that your business is doing as well as it is because you put in the work. First of all, like, luck is a product of hard work, and it's a product of really knowing your worth and saying, I'm going to step into this gift that I have. I'm going to step into what I know is best for me, step into alignment. And then the universe is like, fine, we've been waiting on you.
Yeah.
Like, we've been waiting on you to give you this gift that meets what you are now ready for.
Right.
So fuck yeah, you're awesome. And two, people don't change unless they're miserable enough.
Yeah, 100%.
A level of miserable where you're like,
just have to hit the fuck it button and be like, I'm over it. That's what happened to me when I was working initially, my first restaurant job, and it was like the first catalyst to get me out to like work somewhere else. And I was having literally like the worst day. I used to work at Cheesecake Factory, and I was like behind the little bakery thing, and I had like 2 people had called out. It was like me and like some random person that they just shoved behind the bakery that didn't know what they were doing. And it was like, I don't know, it was something dumb like National Cheesecake Day or something. So we were so busy. I had tickets coming out of my ass, and I literally just sat there at one point.
Your ass was like
holding this like lifeless, limp body of like all these tickets coming out, and I was just like, I hate this place. I gotta go. And like the next day is when I went out and I like walked into the photography studio, and I was like, I want a job. I don't care if I have to scrub toilets. I don't give a shit. I want to be like around this, and I need to be here. And they were like, you're hired. I'm like, all right, cool.
And look what you were given when you decided to go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really think once people like close a door, it's true. Like, another door opens, and that is probably a better door for you. But if you hold on because you're afraid, it's just, it's so expensive. Like, it really costs you your whole life.
It really does.
Sacrifice what you know is out of alignment for you. And like, if anybody's listening to this and all you hear me say today is like, step into your alignment because you know what feels good and what's right for you. Mm-hmm. That's just really the goal of my whole life, is to like help people find their alignment. Like, do what's best for you, and everybody else can literally die mad. Like, they're not your problem.
Well, because it's either that, it's like, either you're doing what's right for you and you feel good about your life and like you're the one experiencing that, or like all you're doing is just sacrificing your own happiness for everybody else's, and you just eat giant shit burgers for breakfast, and that's it.
And at the end of the day, like, that's such a shitty way to manipulate people into liking you.
Yeah, because you're not actually like, you're selling something fake anyway. You're selling something that's like not true to like what you love, and not true to yourself, and not true to like something that makes you happy.
This is a real tree, and then it's a fake tree, and they're like, WTF with my fake tree, and you're like, but it'll never die, and it's like, you lied to manipulate people to love you, and people only do that because they learn that from somewhere, but it's also shitty, and it makes you miserable. So it's it's too expensive. Yeah,
and I think that was definitely something that I learned too through like my early 20s as well, was I mean, when I was in high school, I was so insecure and so like I just wanted to be whatever, like, what everybody wanted me to be, or I wanted to be, like, what, like, the guy that I had a crush on or something wanted me to be, or something like that. Like, and I think that was like super major when I finally got to move out here, and I finally kind of came out of like my shell, and I realized, like, I went through this like epiphany where everybody's like, be yourself, and you hear it your entire life, and you're like, and then suddenly it's just like rainbows coming out of your fucking ass, and you're like, whoa, I get it now, like, I just have to be myself, right? And it's like so much easier just to go through life like that. Like,
I think it's also easier to do when people don't know you.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was saying. Like, that's why I think it was so transformative for me to be able to, like, just, I mean, the only people who knew me out here was my family, my dad. So, like, he didn't give a crap about who I was. I mean, he did, but, like, I don't care, be who you be. Yeah, so I think that was, like, really, you know, that was major for my growth and development of who I was. And also I got to get the fuck out of Florida, so that was fantastic.
Florida's not bad, but, you know, like, I don't think I would move back there.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of alignment too. Like, I don't know for you, but for me, like, I always knew something was off while living in Florida, but I couldn't place it. I knew I didn't want to stay in Florida, but I could never figure out why it was off. And to this day, I still can't tell you. I just go with what the universe tells me. But, like, when I stepped foot onto the property here in North Carolina, like, when I really moved here, I was like, I felt so much lighter.
Yeah.
Like, if that happened to you?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, the second that I got in my car and I left, I felt that. Yeah. I mean, I always knew that I wanted to leave. I think that visiting is great, but, you know, growing up there was interesting. So.
Yeah. I would like to stay on the beach, but not live there. Thank you very much. Yeah, dude. Look at you. So tell us what you're doing now for your business, so we can give everybody, like, how do we reach you? We'll link all that stuff, but, like, what do you do now? What do you see yourself doing in the future? Like, listen to this 5 years from now. Yeah, give me that deets, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, okay. So I do graphic design and photography. It's called Bohem Fox Productions. It's bohemfox.com. It's pretty dope. I like to do a lot of, like, mountaintop elopements, and, you know, that's kind of like what I'm, like, leaning towards. I've done a lot of portrait stuff and everything, obviously, but God, I did this mountaintop elopement in Vail a couple weeks ago, and I was just, like, sitting on top of a mountain eating, like, this chocolate mousse that was handmade by the bride, made with like chocolate from France, and, like, Veuve champagne up there, and I'm like, this is my life. This is my office space right now. What the fuck? Why did it take me so long to make this decision? Like, this is awesome.
Yeah. So you were totally like, this is what I am doing now.
100%. I'm like, yes, please. Better than smelling like dirty sushi when I get home from my restaurant job. The sushi's good. I just dirty as hell. So I do a lot of photography. I do a lot of graphic design. Obviously, I'm, like, rebranding a mezcal bar right now that's in town, and so that's all, like, gonna start launching here real soon. And I did some rebranding for a tie-dye company on Etsy. I do kind of a lot. Like, if you have something that you need done, like, I usually just take it on just to see, like, how I really like it, because there's so many different facets, especially to graphic design, that it's like I could literally go forever and still probably not touch base on everything. So I'll try everything at least once. But yeah, so just taking on these big projects at the moment and trying to kind of get over the deadline pushes, and that's about it at the moment. In terms of, like, where I see myself in 5 years.
Yes.
I mean, I'm loving working from home. I'm loving being able to, like, have my own schedule. I'm loving, like, the travel that's getting opened up to me for different aspects of this. So ideally, I would love to be doing more, like, travel photography, like going on people's honeymoons with them to, like, Iceland or something. And our photographers that did our wedding pictures, they did that, and I was just like, oh my God, that's a thing I can do. fuck yes. And then it's just like opened up this whole thing where I'm like, I can literally make this anything I want. So I'm still exploring what I want it to be.
That is
like,
so cool.
Yeah, like what is my, like, how do I want my month and my year and my like day to day to really look? Like,
oh my God. I'm like, I don't want to scream on the podcast, but I'm like screaming internally right now. Like right now.
it's nuts. I think that's like the best part is like, I mean, I really came out of like quarantine just like balls to the wall. Like I suddenly just was like completely overbooked and I was just scrambling. And so I'm coming out of that. I'm like peeking out of the hole like, oh my God, like that was intense. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I don't ever want to do that again. But like, what do I actually like? Now I have this opportunity to like really see like what can I actually budget my time for? What can I like? What do I want to budget my time for? How long do certain things take? Versus, realistically versus my expectations and stuff. So, yeah, I'm still trying to figure out, I think, what I really want to do with all of that. But, I mean, travel's always been,
it'll change as time goes, too. Like,
and that's why, and again, with the whole, like, everything kind of has to flow. Like, when I started this business originally, when I had the, like, inception of it, it was going to solely be a photography business. And then after going to school, now it's graphic design. And now I kind of flitter back and forth between the two. And I know, like, I can make a 5-year plan because I think that's healthy to do, but like, I don't know.
Yeah, but I think that's valuable, and I think it's more valuable to be flexible.
100%, yeah.
Like, if you're so committed to the end goal that you miss opportunities along the way, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Stop doing like I had an opportunity.
Take whatever. I'm like, I'll figure it out along the way, and I'll see what I like, what I don't like, and we'll go from there, I guess. Yeah.
That's such a like healthy, grounded perspective. I'm just
thank you.
So proud of you. I love you so much.
I love you too.
What do you want to leave people with?
Let's see. I think the main thing that I can leave everybody with is listening to yourself. Listening to like your gut and your own intuition and following, what speaks to you both negatively and positively. And like you said, just try to stick into like what keeps everything aligned and like the alignment in your life. And just follow that, just chase it, because that's the only thing that's going to really continue to make you happy on a long-term basis rather than like short-term, sugar, little like sugar cookies, just melts in your mouth for 5 minutes and it's gone. Yeah. Go for the long term.
You have such interesting analogy. Like a sugar cookie. I think that's so valuable. Like, it's more work up front because you're settling through the discomfort up front, but the long-term consequence is peace versus you chase safety and you never get peace because you're always having to compromise and self-sacrifice and self-betray. Like, when you really step into alignment like you're talking about, like, yeah, it's harder on the front end, but on the back end, you're just like, oh my God, this is the life that I want, and I created it.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, it's scary. I like another analogy for you. I feel like it would be, and I'm terrified of open water, so this would be it for me. It'd be like learning how to surf, right? You have to like go through all this work to like paddle out, and then standing up is like terrifying to like do. I mean, I don't know how to surf, so I'd imagine. But then like you just surf all the way through.
Yeah, and then coast, right
through the barrel, and you're good.
I love it. Like, you would never have been on a mountaintop eating chocolate mousse from France and drinking champagne if you hadn't started your own business. Like
Vail, what? Come on. Oh my God, it was so gorgeous.
It is Vail, by the way. Like, I'm not from Colorado.
Where is Vail?
I assume it's in Colorado, but like, is it
just? Yeah. No, it is. It's like one of the like really schwanky mountain towns out here. It's real nice. It's like a photographer's paradise. Anywhere you go, anytime.
If you're rich, fly me out.
Okay.
Look a girl up and fly me out. Dude, thank you so much. We will link all of your stuff. I'm gonna end the recording and then we can jam.
Yay! Thanks, Mandy.
You're the best.